I'm Mike, 35, and I live in Austin, where the sun's always blazing and the tacos are always better than anywhere else. 10 years ago, I was the guy in high school, captain of the lacrosse team, prom king, the one everyone invited to their parties. I wasn't a jerk about it, at least I don't think so, but I had that teenage confidence that made me feel invincible. Fast forward to now, I'm a real estate agent, closing deals on condos downtown and ranch houses in the suburbs. I've got a wife, Sarah, who's my whole world, and a 2-year-old daughter, Lily, who's got me wrapped around her tiny finger. Life's good. Not perfect, but good. I've got a Tesla in the garage, a decent 401k, and a marriage that feels solid. Or at least it did, until my 10-year high school reunion turned everything upside down. When the reunion invite popped up in my inbox, I got this rush of nostalgia. It was being held at the Driscoll Hotel, this swanky old place downtown, with chandeliers and marble floors. I could already picture myself walking in, Sarah on my arm, showing off how far I'd come. I mean, I wasn't trying to brag, but I wanted to flex a little. Successful career, beautiful family, life on track. Sarah wasn't as excited. She's from Dallas, went to a different high school, and didn't know my old crowd. "It's just a bunch of people you haven't seen in a decade," she said, rolling her eyes as she bounced Lily on her hip. "You sure you want to spend a Saturday night reliving glory days?" I laughed, told her it'd be fun, maybe a little cheesy, but fun. "We'll get dressed up, have some drinks, maybe dance to some bad 90s music. Come on, babe, humor me." She sighed but agreed, probably because she knew I'd keep bugging her until she did. The week leading up to the reunion was hectic. I was closing a deal on a property in Zilker, Sarah was swamped at her job, she's a graphic designer for a marketing firm, and Lily had a cold, so we were both running on fumes. Still, I was hyped. I rented a sharp navy suit, got a fresh haircut, and even convinced Sarah to wear this emerald green dress she saves for special occasions. "You're gonna steal the show," I told her, and she smirked, saying, "Yeah, sure, in a room full of your ex-cheerleaders." That was Sarah, sarcastic, quick-witted, always keeping me on my toes. We'd been together 6 years, married for 3, and I still got butterflies when she walked into a room. I thought we were rock solid. I really did. The night of the reunion, we dropped Lily off at my mom's and headed to the Driscoll. The place was decked out. String lights on the patio, a DJ spinning throwback hits, and a bar serving overpriced whiskey sours. I felt like I was 18 again, shaking hands with old teammates, catching up with guys I used to sneak beers with behind the bleachers. Sarah stuck close, sipping a glass of wine and smiling politely as I introduced her to people whose names I barely remembered. "This is my wife, Sarah," I'd say, proud as hell, and she'd nod, charming everyone with her quick one-liners. For the first hour, it was perfect. I was in my element, reminiscing about lacrosse games and that one time we TP'd the principal's house. Then I noticed Sarah acting off. She kept glancing at her phone, her fingers tapping nervously against her glass. At first, I thought it was work. She's always getting last-minute emails from clients, but she wasn't typing back, just checking the screen every few minutes. "You okay?" I asked, leaning in so she could hear me over the music. "Yeah, just tired," she said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I let it go. Maybe she was just bored, surrounded by strangers, swapping stories about a high school she didn't attend. I grabbed her hand, pulled her toward the dance floor, hoping to lighten the mood. She laughed as I spun her to some cheesy Backstreet Boys song, but her eyes kept darting toward the entrance. That's when he walked in. Josh, her high school boyfriend from Dallas. I'd heard about him before, her first love, senior year, broke up when he went to college in California. She'd always downplayed it, called it puppy love, said it ended amicably because of distance. I'd seen a few old photos of them on her Facebook years ago, but I never thought much of it. Ancient history, right? Except now, he was here, at my high school reunion, looking like he just stepped out of a GQ ad. Tall, broad shoulders, wearing a tailored blazer and a smile that screamed confidence. My stomach did a weird flip, not because I was jealous, I'm not that guy, but because I couldn't figure out why he was here. Turns out Josh had transferred to our school for senior year after his family moved to Austin. I vaguely remembered him, quiet guy, kept to himself, not part of my crowd, but Sarah remembered him. Oh, she remembered him. He spotted her across the room and made a beeline, that charming smile getting wider. "Sarah, is that you?" he said, like he had just bumped into her at a coffee shop. She froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips, then broke into this huge grin. "Josh! Oh my God, what are you doing here?" They hugged, and I swear it lasted a beat too long. My hand tightened around my whiskey glass. "Mike, right?" Josh said, turning to me with a handshake that was just a little too firm. "Good to meet you. Sarah and I go way back." He laughed, and she laughed, and suddenly I felt like I was crashing their private reunion. They started talking. Fast, like they'd been waiting years to catch up. Dallas memories, inside jokes about some diner they used to go to, stories I'd never heard. I stood there, nodding like an idiot while they went on about homecoming dances and sneaking out to concerts. "You still listen to the Strokes?" Josh asked her, and she giggled. Giggled like a teenager. "All the time," she said. And I realized I didn't even know she liked the Strokes. I tried to stay cool. I'm not the possessive type, never have been. Sarah's allowed to have a past, same as me. But the way she leaned in when he talked, the way her eyes lit up, it was like I was watching a version of her I didn't know. I excused myself to grab another drink, mostly to give myself a second to breathe. At the bar, I ran into my old buddy Chris, who's a private investigator now, but back in high school was the guy who called for fake IDs. "Yo, who's that guy with your wife?" he asked, nodding towards Sarah and Josh, who were still deep in conversation. "Her ex," I said, trying to sound casual. Chris raised an eyebrow. "You cool with that?" I shrugged. "It's just a reunion, man. No big deal." But it was a big deal. When I rejoined them, Josh was telling Sarah about his life now. Big shot lawyer, working at some fancy firm downtown, single, no kids, living the bachelor dream. Sarah was eating it up, asking questions, laughing at his stories. I tried to join in, but every time I spoke, it felt like I was interrupting. At one point, Josh said, "Man, Sarah, you haven't changed a bit. Still the same girl who'd argue with me about pizza toppings." She laughed again, touching his arm lightly. I don't think she even realized she did it, but I noticed. Oh, I noticed. The rest of the night was a blur. Sarah stuck by Josh's side, introducing him to people like he was my plus one. I hung back, talking to old friends, but my eyes kept drifting to them. By the time we left, around midnight, Sarah was quiet in the car. "You have fun?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Yeah," she said, staring out the window. "It was nice seeing everyone." Everyone. Right. I didn't push it, but something in my gut told me this wasn't over. Josh had walked back into her life, and I had a sinking feeling he wasn't leaving anytime soon. That week, Sarah was different. She was glued to her phone, smiling at texts, typing quick replies when she thought I wasn't looking. I asked who she was talking to, and she said, "Just some friends from Dallas." But her voice had that same nervous edge from the reunion. I'm not proud of it, but one night when she was asleep, I checked her phone. I'd never done that before, never felt the need to. But there it was, pages of text with Josh. Nothing explicit, but flirty. Stuff like, "God, it was so good to see you," and "I forgot how easy it is to talk to you." He had written, "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left for California." And Sarah hadn't shut it down. She'd replied, "Yeah, I think about that too." My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd wake her up. I put the phone down, went to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of bourbon. I wasn't mad, not yet. I was hurt, confused. Sarah was my wife, the mother of my kid, the woman I had built a life with. Why was she entertaining this? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I started planning. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I wanted answers, and I wanted them out in the open. Josh was about to find out that I'm not the guy who just stands there while his world falls apart. So there I was, standing in my kitchen at 2 a.m., a glass of bourbon in my hand, staring at the texts between my wife, Sarah, and her high school ex, Josh. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left for California," he'd written. And Sarah, my Sarah, had replied, "Yeah, I think about that too." Those words burned into my brain, looping like a bad song. I wasn't just hurt anymore, I was pissed. Not the yelling, throwing things kind of pissed, but the quiet kind. The kind that makes you think 3 steps ahead. I put the bourbon down, went back to bed, and lay there, staring at the ceiling.
planning my next move. I wasn't going to let this slide, but I also wasn't going to blow up our marriage without proof. I needed to know how deep this went, and I needed Sarah to see it for herself. The next morning, I acted like everything was fine. Made coffee, kissed Sarah on the forehead, took Lily to daycare. Sarah was her usual self, smiling, teasing me about my bad pancake flipping skills, but I could tell she was distracted. Her phone buzzed constantly, and every time she glanced at it, her lips twitched into a half smile. I didn't say anything. Instead, I texted my buddy Chris, the private investigator from the reunion. "Need a favor," I wrote. "Can you dig into someone for me?" Chris called me within 10 minutes. "Who's the target?" he asked. No nonsense. "Josh, Sarah's ex, the lawyer from the reunion." I could hear Chris smirking through the phone. "Trouble in paradise, huh? Give me a couple days." For the next few days, I played the part of the oblivious husband. Sarah was working late, or so she said, and I didn't push her. But I noticed things, how she'd take her phone to the bathroom, how she'd get quiet when I asked about her day. One night, she said she was meeting a client for drinks, but her makeup was done up like she was going on a date, not a work meeting. I nodded, said, "Have fun," and watched her leave. Then I called my mom to check on Lily and drove to the bar she'd mentioned, a trendy spot downtown called the Roosevelt Room. I didn't go in, just parked across the street. Sure enough, there was Sarah, sitting at a high-top table with Josh. No client in sight. They were laughing, leaning in close, her hand brushing his when she reached for her drink. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I needed more than a hunch. Chris got back to me on Thursday. We met at a coffee shop near my office, a little place with mismatched chairs and overpriced lattes. He slid a folder across the table. "Your boy Josh isn't as single as he's acting," he said, sipping his espresso. Turns out Josh was engaged. Engaged to a woman named Claire, a pediatric nurse in Dallas. They'd been together for a year, with a wedding planned for next spring. Chris had found her Instagram public, full of couple photos, including one from 2 weeks ago where Josh was kissing her cheek at a winery. The caption read, "Can't wait to marry my best friend." I felt like I'd been punched. Josh didn't know about Claire. I was sure of it. Josh hadn't mentioned a fiancée at the reunion, and Sarah's texts with him never hinted at another woman. He was playing her, and she was falling for it. I should have been relieved, right? Josh wasn't some perfect bachelor stealing my wife. He was a liar. But instead, I was furious. Furious at him for stringing Sarah along, and furious at her for letting him. I could have called her out right then, shown her the evidence, but that felt too easy. I wanted her to see Josh for who he was, and I wanted it to happen in a way she couldn't ignore. So I came up with a plan. It was risky, maybe a little petty, but I was done being the guy who just smiles and takes it. I decided to throw a barbecue at our house that Saturday, a casual post-reunion catch-up for some old high school friends. I told her it was a chance to keep the nostalgia going, maybe invite a few people we hadn't seen in a while. She loved the idea, started planning the menu, brisket, cornbread, all the Texas staples. I casually mentioned inviting Josh. I said, "He seemed cool at the reunion," watching her face. Her eyes lit up just for a second before she nodded. "Sure, that'd be nice." She didn't ask why, didn't hesitate. That was all I needed to know. I texted Josh from Sarah's phone. Yeah, I know, not my proudest moment. She'd left it on the counter while she was in the shower, and I used her fingerprint to unlock it. "Hey, it's Sarah," I typed. "Mike's throwing a barbecue at this Saturday at our place, 4 p.m. Would love for you to come." He replied within minutes. "Sounds awesome. I'm in. Thanks for the invite." I deleted the texts from her phone and put it back. Step 1, done. Then I called Chris again. "You still got that contact info for Josh's fiancée?" I asked. He laughed. "You're playing with fire, man." But he gave me Claire's number. I sent her a polite, friendly message. "Hi, Claire. I'm Mike, Sarah's husband. We're having a barbecue at our house in Austin this Saturday, and Josh mentioned he'd be in town. Thought it'd be great if you could join us. 4 p.m., casual vibe? Let me know if you can make it." I didn't mention Sarah's history with Josh. Didn't need to. Claire responded the next day, "Wow, that's so sweet. Josh didn't mention a barbecue, but I'm free this weekend. I'll drive down from Dallas. Can I bring anything?" I told her just to bring herself, maybe a dessert if she felt like it. Step 2, done. The rest of the week was torture. Sarah was buzzing with excitement about the barbecue, talking about how fun it would be to see everyone again. She didn't mention Josh specifically, but I could tell she was thinking about him. She spent Friday night marinating brisket and baking brownies, humming to herself like she used to when we first started dating. It should have made me happy, but all I could think about was her texting him, wondering what could have been. I kept my cool, helped set up the backyard, string lights, picnic tables, a cooler full of Shiner beers. My old teammates were coming, plus a few other high school friends, about 15 people total. And Josh. And, if everything went according to plan, Claire. Saturday morning, I took Lily to my mom's again so we could focus on the party. Sarah was in a great mood, wearing this sundress that made her look like a dream. "You're going to have fun today," she said, kissing me on the cheek. "I'm glad you're doing this." I smiled, said, "Yeah, it's going to be a day to remember." She didn't know how right I was. By 4 p.m., the backyard was filling up. My buddy Ryan brought his guitar, playing some old country tunes. The smell of brisket filled the air, and people were laughing, cracking open beers, telling stories about high school pranks. Josh showed up at 4:30, looking like he'd spent an hour picking out his casual outfit. Fitted t-shirt, designer jeans, sunglasses perched on his head. Sarah's face lit up when she saw him. "Josh, you made it," she said, giving him a hug that lingered just a second too long. I shook his hand, played the good host, offered him a beer. He was all charm, thanking me for the invite, saying how great it was to reconnect with Sarah. I nodded, smiled, and checked my watch. Claire was due any minute. At 4:45, I saw a car pull up out front. A woman stepped out, brunette, petite, carrying the tray of cupcakes. Claire. My heart started pounding, not because I was nervous, but because I knew this was it. The moment of truth. I walked over to greet her. "Claire, so glad you could make it," I said, loud enough for Sarah to hear. She turned, mid-conversation with Josh, and her smile froze. Josh's face went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. Claire walked over, all smiles, oblivious to the tension. "Josh," she said, setting down the cupcakes and wrapping her arms around him. "Why didn't you tell me about this? It's so cute." She held up her hand, showing off a shiny engagement ring. "Josh and I are getting married next spring, by the way. I don't think you knew that, Sarah, did you?" Sarah's eyes darted to me, then to Josh, then back to me. I saw it the moment she realized what was happening. Her face turned red, not from embarrassment, but from anger. She knew I'd set this up. And Josh? He looked like he wanted to disappear. I just stood there, sipping my beer, waiting for the fireworks.
The backyard was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the cooler. Claire, Josh's fiancée, stood there with her tray of cupcakes, her engagement ring glinting in the late afternoon sun, completely unaware she just dropped a bomb. Sarah's face was a mix of shock and fury. Her eyes locked on me like I'd personally set her world on fire. Josh looked like he was trying to shrink into his designer jeans, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. My old high school buddies, Ryan and the others, were staring, beers halfway to their lips, sensing the drama but not quite sure what was happening. I just sipped my Shiner, calm as could be, and waited. This was the moment I'd planned for, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure if I felt like the winner or the idiot who just torched his own marriage. Sarah broke the silence first. "Claire," she said, her voice tight, "I'm so happy for you and Josh. I had no idea you were engaged." She shot Josh a look that could have cut glass. Claire, still oblivious, beamed. "Oh, thank you. Yeah, Josh proposed a few months ago at this vineyard in Fredericksburg. It was so romantic." Josh forced a smile, mumbling something about how it was a special day. Sarah's jaw clenched, and she turned to me. "Mike, can I talk to you inside? Now?" I nodded, set my beer down, and followed her into the house. The screen door slammed behind us.
The kitchen was a mess. Cutting boards with brisket scraps, empty beer bottles, Sarah's brownies half-eaten on the counter. She spun around, her eyes blazing. What the hell was that, Mike? You invited his fiancée? You set me up. I crossed my arms, keeping my voice steady. I invited Claire because Josh has been lying to you. He's been texting you, flirting, acting single while he's engaged. Did you know about her? Sarah's face crumpled for a split second, but she recovered fast. No, I didn't know, but that's not the point. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You could have just talked to me. Talked to you? I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Sarah, I saw your texts with him. I wonder what could have been. I think about that too. You've been sneaking around, having drinks with him, lying about work meetings. How was I supposed to talk to you when you're acting like I'm not even here? She froze, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. You went through my phone? She whispered. I nodded. Yeah, I did. And I'm not sorry. I needed to know why my wife was smiling at her phone like a teenager in love. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. It wasn't like that, Mike. Josh and it was just nostalgia. We were catching up, remembering old times. I wasn't going to do anything. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Then why didn't you tell him to stop? Why didn't you mention his fiancée? Oh, wait, you didn't know about her? Because he didn't tell you. And you didn't tell me about your little catch-up sessions either. That's not nostalgia, Sarah. That's an emotional affair. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Don't say that. I love you. You and Lily are my life. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the words felt hollow. If that's true, Sarah, why were you texting him about what could have been while I'm planning barbecues and raising our kid? She didn't have an answer. She just stood there, staring at the floor, her hands shaking. I could hear laughter from the backyard, Ryan strumming his guitar again, trying to break the awkwardness out there. But in here, it was just us, and the air was thick with everything we hadn't said for weeks. Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to hurt you. Seeing Josh at the reunion, it brought back memories. Not just of him, but of who I was back then. Before work, before bills, before I was a mom. I got caught up in that feeling. But I swear, Mike, I wasn't going to leave you. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the words felt hollow. If that's true, I said, why were you texting him about what could have been while I'm planning barbecues and raising our kid? She didn't have an answer. She just stood there, staring at the floor, her hands shaking. I could hear laughter from the backyard, Ryan strumming his guitar again, trying to break the awkwardness out there. But in here, it was just us, and the air was thick with everything we hadn't said for weeks. Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to hurt you. Seeing Josh at the reunion, it brought back memories. Not just of him, but of who I was back then. Before work, before bills, before I was a mom. I got caught up in that feeling. But I swear, Mike, I wasn't going to leave you. I wanted to scream to ask her how she could be so reckless with our marriage, but instead I said, I need you to figure out what you want, Sarah, because I can't keep wondering if I'm competing with your past. She nodded, wiping her eyes, and walked back outside. I stayed in the kitchen for a minute, trying to breathe. When I rejoined the party, Josh and Claire were gone. Ryan caught my eye, raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask. Sarah was playing the perfect host, refilling drinks, laughing too loudly at someone's joke. But I could see the strain in her face, the way she avoided looking at me. The barbecue dragged on for another hour, but the vibe was off. People started leaving early, mumbling excuses about early mornings or babysitters. By 8 p.m., it was just me, Sarah, and a backyard full of empty bottles and half-eaten food. That night, Sarah slept in the guest room. She said it was because she didn't want to fight in front of Lily, who was coming home in the morning, but I knew it was more than that. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling again, replying everything. Part of me felt vindicated. Josh had been exposed, Sarah had been forced to face the truth, but another part of me felt like crap. I'd set her up, humiliated her in front of our friends, even if she'd been lying to me first. Was I the good guy here, or just a guy who'd played dirty to prove a point? I didn't know anymore. The next morning, Sarah was up early, making breakfast for Lily like nothing had happened. But when Lily was napping, she sat me down at the kitchen table. She owed me an apology, she said, her voice steady but quiet. I should have shut Josh down from the start. I liked the attention, okay? It felt good to feel wanted, like I was more than just a mom or a wife. But I didn't mean for it to go this far. I nodded, waiting for the but. It came. But what you did yesterday, inviting Claire without telling me, making a spectacle, that wasn't fair either. You didn't trust me to talk to me first. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. Sarah, I didn't trust you because you were lying to me. You were sneaking around with a guy who was lying to you. What was I supposed to do? Just sit back and let it happen? She looked away, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee mug. I don't know, she said, but I don't know how we move forward from this. That hit me hard. Move forward? I hadn't even thought about what came next. I'd been so focused on exposing Josh, on making Sarah see the truth, that I hadn't considered what it would do to us. Do you want to move forward? I asked, my voice cracking. She didn't answer right away, which was answer enough. I need time, she finally said. I need to figure out what I'm feeling. I nodded, but inside I was screaming. Time? What did that mean? Was she staying? Leaving? Thinking about Josh and his stupid vineyard proposal? The next few days were brutal. Sarah was polite, but distant, like we were roommates instead of husband and wife. She spent a lot of time with Lily, taking her to the park, reading her stories, like she was trying to anchor herself in something solid. I threw myself into work, showing houses, signing contracts, anything to keep my mind off the mess at home. But every night, when I came back to our quiet house, the reality hit me. My marriage was hanging by a thread, and I didn't know if I'd made it better or worse by inviting Claire. I called Chris again, not for dirt this time, but for advice. We met at a dive bar on East 6th, the kind of place where the jukebox still plays Johnny Cash. You played a dangerous game, man, he said, cracking open a peanut. You got the truth out, but now what? You gonna forgive her, or are you gonna keep digging? I didn't know. I wanted to forgive Sarah, I really did. She was the woman I built a life with, the mother of my kid. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing with Josh, texting him behind my back. What would you do? I asked. Chris shrugged. It depends. Do you think she's worth fighting for? That question stuck with me. Was Sarah worth fighting for? Or had she already checked out, chasing a feeling she'd lost years ago? I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing. I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. I decided to give Sarah the time she asked for, but I wasn't going to sit around waiting forever. I needed to know where we stood, and I needed her to be honest, with me and with herself. The barbecue had exposed Josh, but it had also exposed us, and now we had to deal with the wreckage.
It's been 3 weeks since the barbecue, and I'm sitting in a new apartment in South Austin, a one-bedroom with a view of the skyline that doesn't quite feel like home yet. The place smells like fresh paint and regret, but it's mine for now. Sarah and I are done. Not legally, not yet, but the ring's off her finger and Lily's crib is at her mom's house in Dallas half the time. I didn't think it would end like this. But then again, I didn't think my wife would be texting her ex about what could have been either. Life's funny that way. It hands you a script, then flips it upside down. After the barbecue, Sarah asked for time and I gave it to her. For about a week, we tiptoed around each other, polite but distant, like strangers sharing a house. I'd catch her staring out the window, lost in thought, or scrolling her phone, though I noticed she wasn't texting Josh anymore. I didn't check her phone again. Once was enough. Lily kept us grounded. Her giggles and tantrums a reminder that we were still parents, even if we weren't sure what we were to each other anymore. But the silence was killing me. I couldn't live like that, waiting for her to decide if she wanted me or the ghost of her high school sweetheart. On a Monday evening, I came home from showing a house in Travis Heights, and Sarah was waiting for me in the living room. Lily was at my mom's house, and the house was too quiet. Sarah was sitting on the couch, no makeup, hair in a messy bun, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," she said, and my stomach dropped. Those words never mean anything good. I sat down across from her, bracing myself. "I've been thinking a lot," she started, her voice shaky, "about us, about Josh, about what I did. I messed up, Mike. I messed up bad." I nodded, waiting. I'd heard her apologies before, but this felt different. When Josh showed up at the reunion, she said, it was like stepping back into who I was at 18. Carefree, stupid, full of dreams.
I got caught up in that feeling and I let it know too far. I should have told him to stop, should have told you what was happening. But I didn't, and I hurt you. I'm so sorry. Her eyes were wet, but she held my gaze like she was willing me to believe her. I wanted to, but I couldn't shake the image of her laughing with him, texting him behind my back. Why didn't you just talk to me? I asked. If you were feeling stuck or bored or whatever, why him and not me? She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring. Because it was easier, she admitted. Talking to you would have meant admitting I wasn't happy. Not completely. And I didn't want to face that. Josh was safe. A fantasy. He wasn't real life. Not like you and Lily. I leaned back, processing. So what now? I asked. You're sorry, but what does that mean? You want to fix this, or are you still chasing that fantasy? She flinched, but didn't answer right away. That silence said everything. I don't know if I can be what you need, she said finally. I love you, Mike. I do, but I've been questioning everything. Us, me, what I want. I need to figure that out, and I can't do it while we're together. My chest tightened like someone had sucked the air out of the room. So you're leaving? I said, not a question. She nodded, tears spilling over. I think we need to separate. For now, at least. I'm going to stay with my mom in Dallas for a bit. Take Lily with me part-time. I need space. I could have fought her. Could have begged, yelled, pointed out that she was the one who'd screwed up, not me. But I was tired. Tired of feeling like I was competing with a memory. Tired of wondering if I was enough. Okay, I said. If that's what you need, I won't stop you. She looked surprised, like she'd expected a bigger fight. But I'd already fought enough, hadn't I? I invited Claire to the barbecue, exposed Josh, laid it all bare. If that wasn't enough to make her choose me, nothing would. Sarah moved out the next weekend. Her mom came down to help packing up Lily's toys and Sarah's clothes while I stayed out of the way. My mom was there too, giving me those worried looks she's mastered over the years. You sure about this, Mikey? She asked, squeezing my arm. I wasn't sure about anything, but I nodded. It's her call, Mom. I can't make her stay. Sarah and I agreed to co-parent Lily, splitting time between Austin and Dallas. It's not ideal, but Lily's young enough that she doesn't understand the mess we've made. She just knows Daddy's house has a new train set and Mommy's house has her favorite stuffed giraffe. I heard through Chris that Josh and Claire are still together, despite the barbecue bombshell. Apparently, Josh spun some story about just catching up with Sarah and Claire bought it. Or maybe she didn't, but she's sticking with him anyway. Good for them, I guess. Sarah hasn't mentioned Josh since she left, and I haven't asked. I deleted her text with him from my memory, but not from my heart. That's the thing about betrayal. It lingers even when you want it gone. A week after Sarah moved out, I sold her engagement ring. It wasn't about the money, though the $10,000 didn't hurt. It was about letting go. I used the cash to book a trip to Colorado, just me in a cabin in the mountains. I needed to clear my head, figure out who I was without Sarah's laugh in the house, without Lily's toys scattered on the floor every day. The trip was quiet, cold, exactly what I needed. I hiked, drank coffee by a fire, and thought about the last 6 years. I don't regret inviting Claire to the barbecue. It was messy, sure, but it forced the truth out. Sarah was slipping away long before that night, and I was too busy playing the perfect husband to see it. Now I'm back in Austin, settling into this new apartment. It's smaller than our old place, but it's mine. Ryan's been a rock, dragging me to bars, introducing me to his new girlfriend's friends. You're not dead, man. You're 35, not 80. I'm not ready to date. Not even close. But it's nice to know I've got people in my corner. Lily comes over every other weekend, and those days are the best. We build forts, eat too many pancakes, and I try not to think about the family we used to be. Last week, Sarah texted me. First time since she left. I'm sorry for everything, she wrote. I'm working on myself. Hope you're okay. I stared at the message for an hour, trying to find the right words. In the end, I just wrote, take care of Lily. I'm good. And I am, mostly. I'm not the prom king anymore, not the guy who thought he had it all figured out, but I'm Mike, Lily's dad, a damn good real estate agent, and someone who's learning to live with the truth, even when it hurts. Sarah made her choices, and I made mine. The barbecue didn't end our marriage, it just showed us what was already broken. And now, I'm building something new, one day at a time.